Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm sharing a few of my favorite techniques that I've discovered during my creative play with the brand new Distress Watercolor Pencils. The first technique that I tried was coloring over an inked background, and I really love the way that this turned out. I grabbed an inked background from my stash, heat embossed with black embossing powder, and then started coloring. To demonstrate this technique, I'm starting with a number 5 Distress Heavy Stock tag. I've stamped and heat embossed with one of my favorite HOLTZ stamps. And this is over a background that is not particularly my favorite background. And so this is a great way to give new life to your backgrounds that might not otherwise get used. So as I'm coloring, I'm using a similar color pencil as the color of my background. Because the pencils come in the Distress palette, you could match your colors exactly, but I'm not too worried about that. I kind of like to mix and match a little bit. And I'm not too worried about overlapping my pencils as I color because I will be blending those with a little bit of water. So I pretty much have my tag covered with my pencil coloring. Now I'll spritz the tag with some water, and I'm going to start blending with my fingers. I'm changing fingers as I change colors. It really doesn't take much blending to soften that line between colors and kind of blend those colors out, and it really makes them pop. Just check that out. Dabbing off some of the excess water, and now I'm going to heat dry. And there's nothing wrong with the way this looks right now, but I think one more layer of color really does the trick with this technique. So I'm repeating the process, using the same colors, except right here I'm using Mermaid Lagoon. And you can see I can color over the yellow with the blue. You don't have to stick with color on color. I think the fun of this is just playing around and seeing what you get. And now I'm using Picked Raspberry, which is one of my favorites. I really love the way that it plays over the tops of the different colors, especially the blue. Going to blend again with some water. And what a transformation. I now have a brand new background, and I had so much fun making it. So this is another technique that I found really fun. So I'm working with IDEA-OLOGY mummy cloth. I've misted that with some water, and I'm simply coloring in random areas using some of the colors that I used on my tag. Gonna scrunch it all together. You could let this air dry, but I'm going to heat dry. And I love it. So nice to have one more Distress product to color fabric with. For my next technique, I'm working on Distress Craft Heavy Stock. I've stamped my image with Black Soot Archival ink. I love this stamp. It's a classic from HOLTZ, and I will link it along with all of my other products used in the description box below. I've started by spraying some water onto my craft sheet, dipping my pencil in the water, and then coloring with the wet pencil. I really love the look that you get from this. And there's something about working on the craft heavy stock that when this dries, you get a really cool chalky effect. Now I will color everything one more time. I'm coloring his tie with a dry pencil. Now I will add some details to her dress with the black soot pencil. I'm getting the pencil wet, but I'm dabbing it on the paper towel before I go to the paper. This will prevent it from bleeding. I probably should have sharpened my pencil, but I didn't want to stop. I know you guys get that. But honestly, I do love that messy look, so I'm glad I didn't. Now to color the background, I'm using one of my favorites, picked raspberry. And watch this come to life when you add the water. The pigment in these pencils is incredible. For the rest of this tag, I'm going to continue coloring with a dry pencil. To blend the colors in a small area, I like to use a detailed water brush. To finish my tag, I'm using a damp paper towel and blending out the colors. My final touch is to add a little color to his coat. And I love how this tag came out. This next technique is my very favorite. It's not a surprise that the Distress inks and Distress pencils work so beautifully together, and I will share how I achieved this tag. This tag was done exactly the same way, only there was no ink involved. It was all just coloring with the Distress pencils, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But I'm going to share how I started both of these tags. I'm starting with a number 5 Distress Heavy Stock tag. I'm putting down a liberal amount of collage medium. And now I'm taking some IDEA-OLOGY botanical collage paper and I'm going to lay that onto the tag. I've done several of these at once so that they were ready to go when I wanted to spray and color. There's some wrinkles, but I actually like those. I don't mind those at all. To start, I've put one of my tags in my splat box. I'm spraying with Distress ink, and I believe this is picked raspberry I'm starting with. Spritzing a little bit of water. I'm wanting to get that ink moving. But because I've sprayed over collage medium, the Distress ink isn't going to react as it normally would. And that's totally okay because this is only our first layer. Next, I'm going to dab off the excess ink with a paper towel. Now I'm spraying with crushed olive, which is one of my favorite Distress colors. Spritz with a little water, and now I will dry that. And I think this is good. I'm going to dab off the excess ink, dry my tag, and now I'm ready to start coloring. I'm starting with Seedless Preserves. It's one of my favorite colors for these flowers. Next, I'm going to color with Picked Raspberry on the outer portion of the flower. There's really no right or wrong when it comes to coloring. Sometimes I'll start with a lighter color on the center of the flower. Sometimes I'll start with a darker color on the center of the flower, and I find that in the end, it all looks great. I'm using a little mustard seed on the center of the flower, and of course, crushed olive is always a favorite, and it looks awesome on the leaves. I'm spraying a little water on my mat, and I'm going to move the color around with my damp finger. Drying with my heated tool. And you can see where the pencil is still wet. When I dab it with the paper towel, it picks up some of the color, but I really like that look because it allows me to go back in and add another layer of coloring. All these layers will add up to a really beautiful end result. I love how the layers are never ending with these pencils. This just adds so much to the flower. Now I like the way that looks, so I'm going to dry that, get it really dry, and now I'm going to start coloring the second flower. This one I'm starting with fired brick. And you can see I'm trying to color just where the darkest part of the flower is. Now a little seedless preserves to fill in. I'm going to move that color around. And now when I dab that off, I really like the way that looks right there. But I'm going to go back in and add another layer after I dry it. Just like with Distress inks, it's important to dry your layers in between so you can build your color. Now a little picked raspberry. Crushed olive. Adding another layer with a crushed olive. Now I'm going to start coloring my background. This is Rustic Wilderness. And you can see where the brush lines are from when I put down the collage medium. It really adds a nice touch to the background. Gonna move that color around, dab some of it up. I'm using my detailed water brush to get into the small areas and move that color around. Now for another layer. This time I'm using peacock feathers, and I love the way that this turned out. I absolutely love these Distress watercolored pencils. As soon as I got them and started to play with them, I fell in love. They are just so much fun, and the possibilities are endless. Using my detailed water brush for some final touches. I'm spritzing one last time, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of that color, which adds a nice final touch. A little rustic wilderness in the center of that flower. I'm blending it a little bit. And my tag is complete, and I absolutely love it. This is such a super fun technique. I have stacks of these tags, and each one comes out unique, a little bit different from the next, but they're all just gorgeous and so much fun. Thanks you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you next time.